Big thank you to my sovereign sister Elvira and co-host of the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement podcast for this very powerful discussion on breaking the cycles of toxic masculinity. Your insights have just added so much depth to our conversation, and I am so excited to continue the conversation every week. So make sure you join Elvira and I to discuss everything you need to know on generational healing. So as we process what you've learned and begin our own personal generational healing journey, let's zoom out for a moment and just look at the astrological energies at play this week, because this is a very important week. The weekly astrology update is going to help you understand how these planetary movements are influencing not just your personal growth and healing, but also the collective consciousness. Astrology is the oldest science, the oldest tool for self-realization, and it's here to assist you to crowning yourself, just the way the Kundalini Yoga meditation path and A Course in Miracles path allows us also to do. So I want to talk about two very specific things happening this week. Every time a planet or sign changes its movement, it creates big rippling changes because as above, so below. And I want to talk about two very important transits that are happening this week that you need to watch out for. And this is all coming from the tail end of this lunar eclipse in Libra that just occurred on October 3rd, 2024, meaning that the eclipse energy is 6 months long. So the things start to play out and unfold. Whatever lessons you were learning, whatever was being eclipsed in your life, the story starts to unfold over the next 6 month period. But this particular eclipse, as I spoke about last week, it really was about bringing the issues that are tied to your relationships, harmony, codependency, bringing them to the light, to culmination, what has been hidden and suppressed now being exposed. And it was about ending old cycles and recalibrating how we relate to others. But it was an emotional purge because Pisces is all about emotions. And we had to feel what we were feeling in order to disrupt that pattern. And for many of us, it was very difficult because Venus in Scorpio, which was a big part of this eclipse, is not fun to be around. Very intimate, taboo, things being exposed. And on a societal scale, it was about confronting these inequalities and abuse of power and partnerships, and a lot of public unrest occurred. There were several cracks in the political system, in the celebrity Hollywood world, with the upcoming US election, where there was struggle for justice that was being exposed. There was heightened polarization. And now the surfacing of these hidden agendas, especially as it relates to political campaigns, it's all being brought to the light. What gets done in the darkness will be exposed in light. So now we're coming from that energy and stepping into this week with two important things to note. First, Jupiter is going to go retrograde. It's been in Gemini since the summertime. Now it's going to go retrograde in Gemini beginning October 9th. And it's going to stay retrograde from February until February 4th, 2025. And this is kind of a big deal. And the reason it's a big deal, it's because Jupiter, as it is the planet of expansion. It's a planet of grandiosity. It's the planet that makes everything bigger. And in Gemini, they're not necessarily best friends. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and they're not two energies that like to hang out. So what it's doing in Jupiter and Gemini is it's expanding and reflecting and bringing to light our communication styles, our intellectual growth, our belief systems, and how we connect with others. And when it goes to reverse, it's not that it's a bad thing. There's no good or bad. It's more of an inner journey. So direct, we were seeing all these things in the outer world, in the global, in the collective. Now that it goes retrograde, it goes in this inner journey of gathering information and things that are going to be exposed, like misinformation. We've been lied to. Like, for example, there's things that have come out now about Facebook and how the government was asking them to suppress information about during the pandemic that occurred. That was done on purpose, and information was basically not being allowed for people to see it. So now that's being exposed. So that is going to take the same theme, but in your own personal life. What was misinformation that was being held back, now getting ready to be exposed? That's why your communication styles and your beliefs, and especially around media and anything that has to do communication, are going to be brought to the light. Remember, Gemini is the sign of duality, of thought processes. Now, Jupiter retrograde, what is it doing? Collective questioning of truth, of media narratives. And with the US election in full swing, you better expect a very critical reevaluation of political discourse, of campaign messaging, and even scandals involving the spread of misinformation. You're going to see a lot more of that. And on a personal level, you might find yourself going inward, rethinking your beliefs, how you express your ideas, how you gather knowledge, who you believe and who you don't, the media versus not, celebrities, Hollywood versus not, because it's a time to look at whether we're communicating clearly or engaging in this mental overload. And that is crucial because many times in the past, there have been situations where Jupiter has been in Gemini, for example, in 1941, when we had the Pearl Harbor attack. I was just listening to one of my favorite astrologers, Lori, from Lunar Astrology. I'll link that episode here below, but she was talking about a possible situation where Pearl Harbor is repeated again in the United States of America. And I'll explain it more as we talk about the next transit, which is Pluto going direct in Capricorn. But Jupiter was direct in Gemini when that occurred in 1941. So retrograde could be like we're gathering all of this information and we're looking at all the way we've been lied to and all that, and then there's civil unrest, and then there's that leads to, you know, situations like Pearl Harbor or things like that nature. We have to look at history because history repeats itself. That's the beautiful thing about astrology. You can go back to see when these transits were happening in the past, and it will repeat itself, maybe not identically, but in the very same energies. So we have to pay attention. If you want to stop the cycle, disrupt the pattern, you have to be aware what was happening in my life. You were not alive maybe in 1941, but that's why astrology is so amazing, because you can look at transits like other transits that have happened sooner, and Jupiter and Gemini it's a transit that doesn't take as long as Pluto going into a new sign. It takes 240 some years for Pluto to go around the sign. For example, in Capricorn, it will never happen again in our lifetime again. Jupiter is very different. It doesn't take that long. The cycles are much shorter. So just a lot of unrest, a lot of things exposed, and a lot of people not liking the truth that they've been living under a false lie for a long time. And this is very relevant because the other transit that I want to talk about this week to pay attention to is Pluto finally going direct in Capricorn. It was retrograde most of the summer, and now it's going direct October 11th. And then it leaves Capricorn for 240 some years, November 19th. So Pluto going direct in Capricorn is huge because you heard me talk about the Pluto return of the United States of America. This is a Pluto coming back to its original position when the US Constitution was created in 1776. And this Pluto return in America started actually in 2022, peaking now at this time because it's getting ready to finally leave Capricorn. And what has been happening since that time, it's been shaking up systems of power, of government, of corporation, institutional structures. So now going direct October 11th, this is the final push to reshape these foundations before Pluto leaves Capricorn for good on November 19th after the election. That's why there's a lot of talk, especially in astrology, and I sort of do agree with it. No, I do agree with it, that basically this election is either going to be delayed or we won't know who the winner is for a while, for a long time. And there's some things in the charts of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris that are indicating this, but there's some also detrimental things that a lot of astrologers are forecasting can occur, especially if they're going to occur, they're going to happen in October before the election, because Capricorn represents authority, discipline, societal structures. So Pluto's moving forward, even if it's moving slowly. So now whatever has been brewing since 2008, it's coming to the light. This is not good for those people that have not transformed and changed and allowed an old self to die. But if you're like me, I'm a Capricorn sun. I've been transforming. I'm not even close to who I used to be even last week, especially not since 2008. And that is why those that have done the inner work, those that have listened to their inner guidance and have done the changes that need to be done for generational healing, Pluto going direct is also a great harvest. Like this week is an incredible week of abundance, of harvesting, of now Pluto bringing to the light all of these things of lessons. I heard a community member of mine in the Sovereign Sisterhood Academy say, the lessons are coming so fast, I don't even know how to stop them. But the lessons are lessons of liberation, lessons of self-worth, lessons of no one needs to govern me. I can govern myself. So as we're moving through this direct period, the transit is going to especially be reckoning with the United States of America. It's going to force the nation to confront its historical power dynamics. And I heard the same astrologer, Lori, in Lunatic Astrology, talk about the fact that every war that has ever been played out, the United States of America has been part of it. So there's governance issues, there's societal structures. This is a time of deep restructuring. And with the election, it's going to be a pivotal part of this transformation. This transition from Pluto and Capricorn to Aquarius is going to focus especially on these traditional structures, breaking them down so that they could be more progressive and having to do with humanitarian ideals. Why? Because Aquarius is of the people. That's why there's a lot of civil unrest that's to follow this election, because power has to be restored back to the people. And if it's not, people are going to revolt. Pluto and Aquarius brings revolutionary changes in technology and societal movements. So expect heightened call for reforms and radical shifts in governance, technology, societal norms in the next year. I can't wait to share with you all of the astrology for 2025. I'm going to wait to do that as we get closer to November and December. I don't know exactly when I'm going to publish that podcast episode, but the world will never be the same again. This is the beginning of time. The Mayans spoke about this with Neptune's influence in 2025. So the election is just the beginning of this transformative era where the US and the world, it's happening in Spain, it's happening in Britain, it's happening wherever there's been abuse of power. We learn to move towards a collective progress to freedom, unconventional solutions, especially with technology, to these problems we've had for a long time. And the United States of America, yes, is like the light is being shined upon it because it's going through its Pluto return, a time of death, rebirth, transformation on a national scale. It's not a coincidence that this return coincides with this critical election year. Pluto is exposing corruption, power abuses, and systematic decay. The Band-Aid has come off, the abuse of women and children. So in summary, Jupiter retrograde in Gemini is going to prompt reflection on communication, media narratives, intellectual growth, but it's also going to expose where we've been lied to. Pluto direct in Capricorn marks the final push for systematic restructuring and a shift toward a more progressive, tech-driven, and collective society. And if you are not vibrating in that frequency, you're going to suffer. And Pluto will bring it to the light. So these transits together, they're creating an atmosphere of deep internal and external transformation. We're looking at these transits, if you look at them on a societal scale, there's cleansing that occurred with the Pisces eclipse, a move towards empathy and humanitarian movements, while Jupiter retrograde in Gemini is going to challenge societal discourse, bringing attention to misinformation or revisiting historical narratives, while Pluto direct in Capricorn at a large scale is bringing shifts in government, economy, institutional system, finalizing the structural transformations that we've all been going through and that has been brewing for many years. So this is a combination of both individual and collective awakening, of restructuring and renewal. And that's why your nervous system stabilization and regulation, as well as your brain agility to process all this information, is key. And there is no magic pill for that. It's called the inner work. And that's what our generational healing sessions are all about in this podcast, to help you learn to stay sovereign, to take your sovereignty back. And what it means is to break those patterns and cycles, to realize how powerful you are and that you are creating this reality. So big things happening. I can't wait to share with you more next week when we're going to talk about this full moon in Aries. That's very pivotal to what is happening in the world and especially in the United States of America. So now that we've explored both these personal and collective aspects of the astrological energies this week, let's turn to our ancestors for additional guidance. It's time now for our weekly tarot reading, where we're going to seek this wisdom from those who came before us to light our path in breaking these generational cycles and reclaiming our sovereignty. But before we do that, if you are enjoying this podcast episode, I want to remind you to hit that like button. It doesn't cost you anything. Hit the subscribe, leave us a comment here below. We are growing this movement and we are calling upon all women to step into their sovereign power and to break those cycles so they could reclaim their sovereignty in these very epic, beautiful times to be alive. So hit that like button, hit that share. Thank you so much because it does help the channel grow tremendously. So I want to go over this week's ancestral tarot reading. And I love it. I love it so much because one of the things that I keep hearing, last week, it was very obvious for me. I woke up one morning getting ready to go into my meditation with my community, the Sovereign Sisterhood Academy, and I heard the ancestors are back. The ancestors are back. And even with all the chaos that's happening in the world, it is very true that justice is being bestowed upon the world. The Band-Aid has come up. We're seeing how through the situation with the fall of Hollywood, for example, the truth about the abuse of women, the truth about the abuse of children, the truth about government entities like the CIA, like CPS, like all these people that we were supposed to trust have always been abusive and have always taken advantage. So it's a critical time for humanity because the Band-Aid's off. So what's happening is that a lot of people, those that have not done the inner healing work, they're very triggered right now and they're very frozen and they're very deep into their generational trauma. But by the same token, thank God the Band-Aid's finally off, because what's happening in the world, and this is what I'm seeing, is God's hand. Justice being served, stories being told correctly. For example, the president of Mexico standing up to the president of, or the king of Spain, who a lot of the Spaniards are now going against the king. They don't even want a king. They're like, why do we need to pay this guy all this money when the only reason he's up there is because of his last name? And look what's happening also wherever else there's kings and queens. Like, people are not falling for that anymore. That's the age of Aquarius. That's the last Pluto in Capricorn, right? But the president of Mexico refused to invite the president from Spain to her inauguration because he wouldn't apologize. He was still telling a narrative that the Mayans and the Mexica, because they were not Aztecs, the Spaniards invented that word because they didn't want to confuse people with Mexica and Mexico. So the Mexica and the Mayans always were an advanced civilization. The story and the narrative that they were trying to say is that the Spaniards came, and believe me, I got Spaniard blood in me too. I've got Mexican blood in me, indigenous Purepecha, so it's hard for me to just, I love my Purepecha roots, but of course I have to honor also the part of Spaniard that's in me. But the truth is that this king was still trying to be egotistical, and he didn't apologize, so he didn't get invited. And the president of Mexico right now is really working, and I'm not saying she's like an angel or like someone to be trusted. I feel like any politician, you need to keep them on a short leash because they all have also an ulterior motives. But by the same token, there are some presidents that actually do love their country and do want what's best for the country, versus what really happened in Mexico for the last 4 presidents. Not this last one, AMLO. AMLO was not sold out. He really helped. But prior to AMLO, AMLO loved this country a lot. Sort of like Donald Trump really loves this country a lot. And again, I'm not putting Donald Trump on a hierarchy. He has so much, he's sold out just as much as Kamala Harris. But AMLO has been proven in Mexico to have done a lot of great things for his country because he loved his country. Right? And prior to AMLO, there were 4 presidents who were actually trained by CIA. trained by the CIA to basically govern Mexico, the US to govern Mexico. That is over and done with. So now Mexico is taking back, that's just an example, taking back her power, Mexico is. And she was asking for not only for them to ask for forgiveness, but also now she's putting in the true story, the true narrative that the Spaniards came to Mexico, murdered lots of indigenous Mayans and Mexicas that didn't come to save them. They were an advanced civilization. At one point, the Mayans were the biggest civilization in the entire world. So now it's like the Mandela effect. We've been told all these stories about history that are incorrect. A narrative. That's what Hollywood was being used for. That's what social media is being used for. They put plants, Haktua girl, demure, all those are plants that they put to sell you a narrative of how you need to think, dress, be, and act. The demure trend. Remember that got all big? Even I got into that. And what the truth is that now he's promoting how he's going to have his operation of transgender in public be published so everybody could see it. That's the narrative. Transgenderism. Same thing that was happening in the 1940s with Red Republic, where there was just complete, look at the these freak-offs. They're not freak-offs, they're sexual rituals. They're satanic rituals. So we need to wake up to that. Now, why is this all leading to what I was talking about, that the ancestors are back? Because by the same token, as much as this band-aid has come off, there's justice being restored, truths being told, lands being restored back to the people that actually truly did own them. So this is a time where they have awakened. This is a time where they're here to support you. And I 1000% believe that in less than 10 years, we'll have the technology so that we can all prove that we can constantly and consistently speak to our ancestors. They're an energy. They're always with us. They live in our DNA as emotions, and we can always connect with them. There are many women in my community that have, because of they healed, have now learned to honor their spiritual gifts. Or before they were afraid of them and they couldn't connect with the spiritual world because they were told not to. And now they're doing that in a very powerful way. That's what happens when you heal. So that's what the ancestors were telling me this week. We're back. Now everyone's going to feel our presence. And I love it. And that's what the reading really reminds me of, this 3-card reading that I want to share with you today. So in the immediate past, we have the Wheel of Fortune. Now, the Wheel of Fortune is reversed in this situation. The Wheel of Fortune represents cycles. And that's, again, when you have a healed, neutral mind through meditation, when you can train your mind and not be a slave through it, you don't judge good or bad. You don't get you don't allow the ego, which is your programming identity, to get arrogant because it feels it's better than someone else, or also to feel less than and idolize other people. So the Wheel of Fortune is about understanding that life is a cycle. The generational healing journey is a cycle. Everything is a cycle. Nature is in cycle, even your menstrual cycle, your moon cycle, all of it is a cycle. And you have to have a neutral mind and a regulated nervous system to understand what cycle you're in. Like for a business, for example, like a business that just opened a week ago is not going to have the same goals or is not going to be in the same cycle as one that has been around for 50 years. So you can't have the same expectations, right? So you have to trust the cycle and know what cycle you're in. Now, reverse, this feels like we came from a period with a bunch of delays, a bunch of stagnation, lots of unexpected challenges, maybe even rock bottom for some of us, for some of you, for some of all of us, where it was necessary to see what no longer serves us, where this phase was concluding a very important introspective phase of growing from within. So basically, we were in this cycle or in this period of our lives where we were being forced to surrender and to trust in life cycles, even the painful one, knowing that it was part of our spiritual evolution. So we were being encouraged here in the immediate past to look at the world and see the miracles in everyday life, to transform the valuable in our life into the priceless. We were learning how to find joy between the fear and love of being a human being. I really feel that this is the energy of the Pisces full moon eclipse that we just closed. And because we did this, because we hit that rock bottom, that dark night of the soul, realized what no longer serves us, understood that this was just a cycle, Now the energy of the present is so beautiful. It's literally of the ancestors, the 10 of Cups. Do you see this family with flower petals? Those are bougainvilleas falling from the sky. This is the ancestors literally showering you with support. You're entering now, because of this, into a period of emotional contentment, of happiness, of fulfillment, especially when it has to do with relationships and family. This represents the manifestation of abundant love, of peace, of harmony in our lives. And it does suggest that right now you are surrounded by loved ones with whom you share deep, powerful connections, providing mutual support and inspiration. This might also be because you found your spiritual community. Sometimes healing is, I need to set boundaries where I cannot be around this particular family member. But that's what the whole age of Aquarius is about. Find your community, find your tribe. And it looks like you have, or you're on the path of doing that. If you're part of this movement, welcome. Because this is all about a period of wholeness, alignment, completion, time of appreciating the blessings that we've cultivated, especially through our connection with others. So we're being encouraged to follow our heart, our intuition, to trust the guidance, the ancestors, to really understand that their support is here. And they're here not only to assist you, but to protect you and your lineage. Why? Because of your own personal recognition of the lessons and the lessons of the Christ consciousness, unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness. This is a major spiritual awakening that you went through. And now it's time for you to harvest. Remember, I said, Pluto direct. If you've been doing this inner work, it's time for you to harvest. The meek have risen, and that's you. Now, in the immediate future, the card that we get is the Page of Wands upright, and I love this for us because this card is all about new beginnings, of enthusiasm, of curiosity, and uncoiled potential. This is like a youthful spirit that's ready to just explore, to learn, to embrace new opportunities, especially as it has to do with spiritual pursuits. So this is a phase now in the immediate future where growth can be found in unexpected places. You're being urged to see the potential in every situation and to reflect on a willingness to take bold steps, to take the plunge, to jump without the need even for a clear plan, trusting God, trusting your journey, and the excitement of discovery. So this is us embarking on a spiritual path, some kind of creative endeavor, a new project that stirs our soul awake with openness to explore a new level of consciousness. This is a call for action to build a legacy and move towards spiritual and personal growth, to stop being afraid of dreaming big and pursuing your visions with unbridled passion, free from the weight of practical concerns. Amazing energy following us, of course, this legacy that we've worked on because of the inner work. So this week, it's so important for us to really, really align with our heart, to lean on ancestral support, and to embark on the fresh opportunities that are presenting themselves with boldness, with passion, with excitement, with trust, and with sovereignty. And this is going to be crucial because, like I said, next week brings forth a very potent full moon in Aries that's going to really level us up. That's going to be your glow up. Aries is about identity and your truth. So what I would say for this week, it's very important for you to really learn to become more still. Those moments of reflection, of meditation are key because the brain does not create consciousness, it downloads consciousness. And if you're not still, you're not using these times for meditation and inner work, you're going to miss the message and you're going to repeat the pattern. It's also very important to embrace the flow of these cycles, to remind yourself, hey, that's what the Wheel of Fortune taught me. Everything is a cycle, whether I'm on the up cycle, where I consider it to be a good cycle, or whether I'm at the low cycle where I consider it to be bad. It's all serving a purpose. And what I need to do is make sure my nervous system is regulated. I have prana running through my system. We're working on the pranic body this month and Satori, vitality, and spirituality, my community. That's the inner work. That's what's going to help you thrive. And the last thing that I'll say, and I'll repeat this again, is that you have a lot of support right now. Throughout these transits, your ancestors have your back. They're guiding you. They're protecting you as you move forward. As we get closer to the end of October, we're going to do a special Dia de los Muertos episode where we're going to talk about ritual, how to connect with your ancestors, and why they're always here. So it's very important to right now trust in the presence of your ancestors, trust in the presence of your spiritual guides, trust in the presence of the Holy Spirit, of Jesus Christ, of whoever guides you, especially right now during these times of uncertainty, so that we can lean on their wisdom. Everything you ever wanted to know, all that knowledge is already inside of you. If you don't access it, you're not going to be able to break these old cycles and step into these new empowered ones. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this week in the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement podcast. It's been an honor to share this week's astrology update, ancestral tarot guidance, and of course, Elvira and I, thank you so much for joining us for this week's topic on clearing the cycle of toxic masculinity. Again, if this is an episode that resonated with you, if you have grown from this, we appreciate you sharing it, liking it, subscribing, hitting that notification bell so you get notified when we do publish a new episode. Expect a brand new episode every week. So make sure you're tuning in. And also feel free to leave any comments or questions below here in the description. Together, we are creating a movement of women like you and me, breaking the cycles at the level of the DNA. And for that, we thank you. We'll see you all next week. Satnam and be blessed.